The Pawn Stars empire, once a shining beacon of success, is now crumbling under the weight of betrayal lawsuits and financial bankruptcy. In a shocking turn of events, investigators have begun processing the large collection of items left behind in what many refer to as the Pawn Stars estate after gold and silver pawn shops filed for bankruptcy. Why were these items left behind? Is there something hidden within them? The answers could completely change the story we've always known about Pawn Stars. If you want to know more, don't forget to like and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next hot updates. His son, Corey Big Hoss Harrison, was sentenced to life imprisonment and became trapped in a nightmare in prison. A bitter family feud now threatens to destroy everything he had built. What started as a standard financial audit quickly developed into a complex investigation when authorities uncovered troubling items among the thousands of artifacts and collectibles accumulated over decades in the Harrison family business. The Las Vegas Institute made the Harrison brand famous through the long-running hit show on the History Channel, Pawn Stars. The gold and silver pawn shops became the most recognized pawn shop in the U.S., attracting tourists from all over the world hoping for a glimpse of Rick Harrison, his son Corey, and the beloved shop assistant Austin. However, the bright TV fame of Chumley Russell has significantly faded as investigators worked through the massive collection. They found items that raised serious questions about the shop's acquisition practices. This unsettling development comes during an already tragic time for the Harrison family, who are still reeling from the heartbreaking loss of Rick's son, Adam Harrison, earlier this year. Adam, 39 years old, who had chosen to stay out of the limelight unlike his brother Corey, passed away from a drug overdose. In January 2025, the closely knit community in Las Vegas, which had witnessed the rise of the Harrison family's fame, was shaken to its core as Rick Harrison was completely devastated. A source close to the family who requested anonymity revealed that first, he tragically lost his son Adam, and now he is witnessing the business his father founded, the legacy he built for his family, being scrutinized and investigated thoroughly. It is a nightmare that is becoming worse by the day. The investigation started quite harmlessly when financial auditors were called in to assess the business's assets after signs of cash flow problems at the once thriving business. The famous pawn shop had significantly expanded its retail space to accommodate the influx of tourists flocking to the store following the success of the show. However, the show is believed to be struggling with declining TV ratings as the series has passed its peak viewership. What the auditors discovered in the vast storage facilities of the shop quickly turned a standard financial audit into something far more serious. Among the legal inventory, items with questionable origins, historical artifacts with incomplete or suspicious paperwork, antiques potentially imported illegally, and even items reported as stolen in other states were found. The volume of materials is substantial. Natalie Rodriguez, a former FBI art crime expert who has consulted on similar cases, explained that we are talking about thousands of items collected over many decades, many of which predate the show's debut when documentation standards were possibly less strict. Sorting what is legal versus what might have been improperly purchased is a monumental task. Investigators are particularly concerned about some Civil War-era items with inconsistent documentation, suggesting they may have been looted from protected historical sites rather than being legally purchased through legitimate channels. Additionally, many Native American artifacts in the collection are potentially protected under the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, with insufficient evidence to show they were legally acquired. The investigation once again turns attention to Austin Chumley Russell, who previously faced legal troubles that temporarily threatened the friendly family image of the show in 2016. Russell was confronted with serious legal risks when the police, while investigating sexual assault allegations that he was ultimately not charged with, discovered drugs and illegal weapons during a search of his home. The case ended with Russell pleading guilty to felony weapon charges and a serious misdemeanor charge of drug possession, leading to 3 years of probation. Chumley worked incredibly hard to overcome his legal issues and rebuild his life. Lawyer Martin Cohen stated that he was completely uninvolved in any potential problematic acquisitions during the time when most of the items in question were acquired. He was simply an employee with no authority to purchase items. Chumley cooperated fully with investigators. Rick Harrison, the public face of the Pawn Stars business and the man who built his reputation on his extensive knowledge of historical artifacts, represents both an individual and a career crisis in the investigation. Harrison often recounts on the show how his father, Richard the Old Man Harrison, taught him the pawn business from a young age, emphasizing that knowledge and careful authentication were the keys to success. Richard Harrison passed away in 2018 at the age of 77 after battling Parkinson's disease, leaving Rick as the head of the family and business. The elderly man, affectionately called the Old Man by millions of viewers, co-founded Gold and Silver Pawn with his son Rick in 1989, laying the foundation for what would eventually become a global television phenomenon when Pawn Stars premiered in 2009. Rick always acknowledged his father's role in teaching him everything about the business. A former producer of the show, who worked closely with the family for 7 seasons, described the old man as tough but fair. He would be heartbroken to see the business facing such accusations, and he was immensely proud of having built something that his grandchildren could inherit. That inheritance now seems increasingly threatened as investigators continue to catalog the vast inventory. In addition to the historical items that could have been illegally bought back, authorities are also believed to have discovered financial irregularities, indicating potential tax issues that may have been ongoing for years. Although no formal charges have been filed, the investigation has expanded to include forensic accountants examining the complex business network created by the success of the show. During the peak of Pawn Stars' popularity, the Harrison family leveraged their fame into several businesses in Las Vegas, including Rick's Roland Smoke. Corey's concern with a bar called Viper Room Las Vegas and the various business deals structured by the company to manage these enterprises is currently under investigation for potential money mixing and questionable cost allocations to Corey Big Hose Harrison, who has worked at the pawn shop since his teenage years and is being trained to eventually take over the family business. The investigation not only threatens his livelihood, but also jeopardizes the succession plan, which has been the subject of countless episodes, showcasing his growth from a rebellious young man to a talented entrepreneur. Corey is trying to stay positive and support his father during this challenging time. A family friend revealed that he is still grieving the loss of his brother Adam while attempting to cooperate with investigators and keep the business running. The shop remains open, but the atmosphere inside is very gloomy. Adam Harrison's death in January cast a dark shadow over the family. The ongoing investigation has only deepened despite Adam choosing not to participate in the TV show because he preferred a life away from the cameras. From the footage, he remains a close part of the Harrison family. His death due to a drug overdose highlighted the opioid crisis affecting families across America, with Rick Harrison later revealing that his son had struggled with addiction issues for years in a poignant statement following Adam's death. Rick wrote, "You will always be in my heart. I love you, Adam." The grieving father later spoke more about the devastating impact of drug addiction, using his platform to raise awareness of the growing opioid epidemic, which claims thousands of American lives each year. The current investigation has heightened media scrutiny of the family during their mourning period, adding tension as they try to navigate personal loss while managing a potential business collapse. Sources close to Rick Harrison say that he has fully cooperated with the investigators while insisting that any irregularities were unintentional and may be a result of the rapid expansion of the business during the show's surge in popularity. Pawn Stars skyrocketed, transforming almost overnight from a local pawn operation to a global brand. Ellis Monroe, a business advisor familiar with reality TV enterprises, explains that the operational systems for a small family business are often broken under such explosive growth. Filing procedures, acquisition protocols, financial controls, these all need to scale significantly, and that doesn't always happen smoothly. Household Names issued a brief statement acknowledging the investigation, while emphasizing that the network is not involved or aware of the day-to-day purchasing activities at Gold and Silver Pawn Shop. "I want a pawn shop, I went to City Hall and they told me, 'No, you can't get a boxing job in Las Vegas.'" The statement further noted that the show is not currently in production until these issues are resolved. The huge success of the show, having aired over 600 episodes across 22 seasons, made it one of the most recognizable brands on cable TV, generating numerous spin-offs and international versions at its peak. Pawn Stars attracted millions of viewers to watch the Harrisons and Chumley appraise unusual items, negotiate with colorful sellers, and bicker playfully with each other. A key aspect of the show's appeal was its educational component, with Rick Harrison in particular sharing historical context and authentication methods for various artifacts brought into the shop. Ironically, this expertise now raises questions about how potentially problematic items might have been brought into the shop's inventory without raising red flags. If these allegations are proven to be true, it creates a real issue regarding credibility. Famous television critic Miranda Jensen states that the show positioned Rick, especially as a highly knowledgeable expert, capable of spotting a counterfeit or problematic item right away. The idea that the shop may have purchased items with questionable origins does not align with the carefully crafted image. Among the most troubling discoveries reported by investigators are some antiques that may have originated from regions with strict export controls, including items from Egypt, Greece, and several Middle Eastern countries. International antiquities laws have significantly tightened in recent decades, with many countries actively pursuing the return of their cultural heritage. Items leaving their borders through dubious means, explains Dr. Kastner, an archaeologist specializing in the repatriation of artifacts. Without extremely careful provenance research, purchasing looted items from archaeological sites or illegally exported from their country of origin for a famous business regularly dealing in historical items is all too easy and dangerous. The standard of authentication would be particularly high for longtime fans of the show. The investigation has prompted a reassessment of episodes in which experts were brought in to authenticate items that the Harrison family was unsure about. These scenarios are presented as evidence of the family's commitment to legality and authenticity. However, this now raises questions about what happened to items whose provenance cannot be verified after the cameras stopped rolling. I've watched every episode and have always respected how careful they are with their authentication, said Margaret Winters, a history teacher from Minnesota, who once took a special trip to Las Vegas to visit the famous shop. Rick always said he wouldn't buy anything without proper paperwork. It's hard to reconcile that with what we're hearing now. The investigation has also revealed the precarious financial situation of this once thriving business empire. While the shop attracts many tourists and became one of the top attractions off the Las Vegas Strip, financial records are said to show significant cash flow issues starting around 2022, when the production of new episodes slowed and sales of merchandise dropped from their peak popularity. Celebrity asset manager Thomas Keegan stated, "Smart people diversify and invest during their peak earning potential. The last time they knew that attention would certainly fade. From what I understand, the Harrisons have expanded into many businesses, but maintaining profitable ventures after the initial celebrity-driven boost fades is a challenge." Complicating matters is Richard, the elder Harrison's involvement after his passing in 2018. His will revealed that he had removed one of his 3 sons from the will a year before his death, leaving his estate to be divided between Rick and another son, Joseph. The legal structure of the pawn shop's ownership now includes several properties and entities, creating additional complexity for investigators as they try to determine accountability for any potential wrongdoing. His previous legal troubles were similar to how he successfully rebuilt his image after his legal issues in 2016. Russell significantly lost weight, focused on his health, opened a candy shop near the pawn shop, and often showcased his successful rehabilitation image. Austin worked incredibly hard to change his life after his legal issues. A friend who knew Russell before he became famous on television mentioned that he has stayed sober, focused on his health, and built legal business ventures separate from the pawn shop. The pawn shop is linked to the investigation due to his association with the show. It's disappointing that he had no involvement in the acquisitions or financial decisions. The investigation has also exposed the complex reality behind the staged scenarios of the reality TV show. While Pawn Stars presents itself as capturing the daily operations of a functioning pawn shop, the production demands meant that many interactions were scheduled and staged, with items and sellers carefully vetted before appearing on camera. However, the camera's shopping operations continue, essentially creating 2 parallel businesses, one selected for TV and another serving regular customers. Most reality TV shows operate this way due to demand. Television producer Samantha Lewis, who has worked on similar formatted shows, explained, "Although not a Pawn Star, you can't just expect interesting people with worthy items to walk into your filming schedule." The challenge for businesses like Gold and Silver is maintaining proper protocols for both the televised transactions and regular business operations that run concurrently with production. As investigators continue handling the enormous inventory reportedly filling multiple storage facilities beyond the shop itself, the Harrison family faces an uncertain future. The gold and silver pawn shop remains open to this day, though primarily serving as a tourist attraction, selling merchandise related to the show, rather than operating as a traditional pawn shop. Its iconic status is clearly shown through the steady stream of tourists still visiting. Many people are unaware of the ongoing investigation behind the scenes. "We traveled all the way from Australia to see the shop," Thomas Mercer said when visiting Las Vegas with his family. "My sons have been serious fans of the show at home and wanted to see where it all happened. We were hoping to see Rick or Chumley, but they told us no cast members were present today." The convergence of personal tragedy and career crisis creates an unimaginable burden. Friends report that he is especially focused on supporting his granddaughter and daughter-in-law after Adam's death. "When he was in his early 20s, he had problems with drugs and, my God, I took him to rehab so many times and every time he did really well," a friend shared, while still trying to overcome the looming threat to the business his father founded over 30 years ago. Rick is a survivor, a longtime partner who knew Harrison before he became famous on television. "He built this business once, and no matter what this investigation concludes, I won't count him out. He's facing the darkest time of his life with losing Adam, and now this investigation, but I've never seen him give up." The legal process is expected to continue for months, as investigators work to determine which items may need to be returned to their rightful owners or countries of origin, and what financial obligations the business might face. Currently, the Harrison family remains in a precarious position. Their once envied success story now serves as a cautionary tale about the hidden pitfalls of rapid expansion and fame. The saddest part is the impact this has on Harrison's legacy, reflecting on a former employee of Gold and Silver who worked at the shop for over a decade. "The old man built this business from scratch, working tirelessly to create something he could pass on through generations," he shared. "Rick expanded it beyond anything his father could have imagined. Now, instead of passing it on to the next generation, they are watching it be dismantled piece by piece as tourists continue to flock to the famous shop on Las Vegas Boulevard." Many take selfies with the Pawn Stars logo and buy souvenirs, unaware that they may be witnessing the final chapter of an iconic American success story, a story that rose to unprecedented heights through television fame before potentially collapsing under the weight of that very success. Frank Fritz's peaceful mansion hides a dark secret buried beneath its floorboards. When the FBI arrived at the sprawling estate in Iowa and began tearing up the old floorboards, they expected to find typical evidence. Instead, what they uncovered was enough to astonish even the most seasoned investigators. The agents were shocked by the discovery beneath the home of the former American picker star, which would soon become national news, leaving investigators and the public stunned. Fritz's journey to his estate in Iowa began after years of traveling across America's back roads in search of forgotten treasures. The estate, located in rural Davenport, captivated him with its rustic charm and historical significance. This connection drove him to purchase the historic farmhouse in 2013, although at the time, it required extensive renovations. With local craftsmen and restoration specialists, Fritz transformed the dilapidated structure into a showcase of his eclectic vision, blending Midwestern architectural elements with personal touches. His estate sits on 20 acres of rolling farmland just a few miles from Davenport, with panoramic views of the Mississippi River Valley. Fritz was drawn to the area after filming several episodes of American Pickers there, calling the place magical. Don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the shocking discoveries surrounding Frank's house. He once told Midwest Living magazine that he bought the property primarily for its secluded location. He then enlisted Davenport architects Thomas Miller and Sarah Johnson of Heritage Restoration to help him transform the existing structure into the private retreat he envisioned. The house was in poor condition. Johnson recalled, "It was a 1890s farm that had been abandoned for almost a decade and had significant structural issues, but Frank saw its potential right away. Good bones and a perfect location." Fritz and his design team weren't interested in creating a place for television. Instead, their priorities were authenticity, comfort, and creating a space to display his growing collection of classic motorcycles and American memorabilia. The renovated home became a blend of many styles, part traditional farmhouse, part rustic cabin, part collector's paradise. "It doesn't try to be anything specific," Miller explained. "It reflects Frank's personality perfectly, simple, authentic, and full of stories." A top priority in the renovation process was structural integrity, ensuring that the old farmhouse could stand for another century. The sagging floors were reinforced, and the foundation was stabilized before any aesthetic work began. Fritz brought the eye of a collector to the finishing details of the interior space. What he wanted was authenticity, a home that honored its 130-year history while still meeting modern comforts. "I've spent my whole life searching for things with patina and history," Fritz explained during a rare home tour. "I wanted my house to feel like it had been lived in and loved through generations." After leaving American Pickers in 2020 and suffering a subsequent stroke in 2022, Fritz became increasingly reclusive. His sprawling estate in Iowa became his refuge from public scrutiny and health issues. Neighbors reported rarely seeing the former TV personality, though the lights could be seen moving through the house at odd hours. His collection of vintage motorcycles and antiques continued to grow, transported by unmarked trucks occasionally visiting the property. Fritz's health issues have been well documented. After his stroke, he spent several months recovering, learning to walk again, and regaining his independence. While he made significant progress, friends noticed he had pulled back significantly from his former social circles. His estate, once occasionally opened for charity events, is now completely off-limits to visitors. Security cameras were installed, and a private fence was erected around the perimeter of the estate. Despite living reclusively, Fritz maintained relationships with a small group of trusted friends. One of these individuals, a longtime motorcycle restoration partner named James Kenworth, became concerned in early 2025 when Fritz stopped responding to calls and messages. After several weeks of no contact, Kenworth reached out to local authorities, requesting a welfare check at the property. When deputies from the Scott County Sheriff's Department arrived at Fritz's residence on March 5, 2025, they discovered a troubling scene. The house appeared undisturbed from the outside, but there was no response after repeated knocks. Fritz's vehicles were still there, and mail had accumulated in the mailbox. After attempting to contact Fritz by phone, the police decided to enter the home. Inside, they found the house in a strangely perfect condition, with no signs of disturbance, but no sign of Fritz. A half-filled coffee cup sat on the kitchen counter, and his wallet and keys were still on a table by the door. The house appeared to have been suddenly abandoned, though nothing of value seemed to be missing. Local authorities noticed the unusual nature of the scene and contacted the Quad City FBI field office. Due to Fritz's fame and the strange circumstances, federal agents arrived within hours to assist in the investigation. Initial searches of the property uncovered nothing unusual, though agents noted that some areas of the main house had been recently renovated. What was particularly noteworthy was the library, where new hardwood flooring had been installed in the past year. This was unusual, given Fritz's well-known preference for original materials. Meredith Carver led the FBI investigation, bringing in forensic experts to examine the property. After 3 days of searching and finding no trace of Fritz, investigators made a key discovery. Subtle inconsistencies in the floor pattern of the library and thermal imaging showed temperature changes beneath some parts of the newly laid hardwood, indicating a void or space underneath that didn't align with known basement areas. On March 9, 2025, FBI technicians carefully began dismantling the hardwood planks in the library, expecting to find a hidden storage area or safe room. Instead, what they uncovered made even seasoned agents recoil in shock. Beneath the floor was a hidden room about 15 square feet, accessible by a concealed ladder. This space had been meticulously built to avoid detection, with soundproofing materials lining the walls. What they found in the hidden room left investigators speechless. Instead of antiques or valuable items one might expect from a collector like Fritz, they found dozens of meticulously arranged, leather-bound journals, with dates carefully noted, alongside thousands of documents, some appearing decades old, and several vintage filing cabinets. The most shocking find was a wall covered in photos and newspaper clippings, all connected by red string in a pattern that suggested an ongoing investigation spanning many years. Agent Carver immediately sealed the scene and established a security perimeter around the property within hours. Specialized document analysts and behavioral scientists flew in from the FBI's headquarters in Quantico, Virginia. Their arrival marked the beginning of one of the most bizarre investigations in recent history for the agency. As FBI analysts began to examine the contents of the secret room, an astounding picture emerged. The journals, spanning over 30 years, detailed Fritz's secret obsession with investigating a series of unsolved cases that had occurred across the Midwest since the 1970s. The earliest journal entries date back to Fritz's teenage years, when a childhood friend disappeared. There was no trace of his hometown, but documents revealed that Fritz had conducted his own parallel investigation for decades, using his American Pickers trips as a cover to visit locations connected to the cases and interview witnesses under the guise of searching for antiques. His journals, detailed conversations, observations, and theories had never been shared with official investigators. The most concerning part was that some recent entries suggested he believed he had identified a pattern linking decades-old cases and that he feared for his own safety. FBI document experts discovered that Fritz had gathered police reports, witness testimonies, and evidence that had never been made public. Some documents appeared to have been obtained through unofficial channels, raising questions about potential links to law enforcement. The wall of photos included images from crime scenes, suspects, and victims, many accompanied by Fritz's handwritten notes. Basically, what we found was a private investigation room that could rival many police departments, Agent Carver told her superiors in a confidential press briefing. Fritz wasn't just collecting antiques during his trips. He had a method of collecting evidence and connecting dots that law enforcement had missed for decades. This discovery raised immediate concerns about Fritz's whereabouts, whether his investigation had led him into danger, or if he had gone into hiding, fearing that someone connected to the cases had discovered his work. The FBI immediately launched a search for Fritz, while also starting to verify the information contained in his hidden archives. As investigators delved deeper into Fritz's journals and documents, they identified at least 17 unsolved disappearances and murders spanning Illinois, Iowa, Missouri, and Wisconsin from 1978 to 2010. Fritz had meticulously documented similarities between the cases that official investigations had never connected. The missing specific items from victims' homes, specific break-in methods, and some of the most convincing geographical patterns were the central theory Fritz detailed in his most recent journal entries. Entries from January 2025 suggest that Fritz believed the cases were connected to a network of antique dealers and collectors who had used their businesses as a cover for darker activities. His notes indicated that some rare items appearing at private auctions could have originated from the homes of victims, establishing a pattern that law enforcement had not detected, focusing on more obvious motives. FBI analysts were astounded to discover that Fritz had compiled a list of names, including several prominent figures in the world of antiques, whom he suspected to be involved. Even more shocking was that he had recorded seemingly harmless encounters with these individuals during his time on American Pickers, noting behaviors or comments that had raised his suspicions. The most recent journal entry, dated February 12, 2025, contained a chilling final line. "They know I know. Meet Jay tomorrow to hand over everything if anything happens to me." The truth was beneath the library floor, and the FBI's discovery at Fritz's estate quickly expanded into a multi-state operation. Unsolved cold case units in 4 states were activated to review the cases that Fritz had connected, benefiting from his years of research. Agent Carver established a dedicated task force based at a secure facility near Davenport, working to verify Fritz's claims while continuing to search for the missing collector. On March 15, 2025, the investigation took another dramatic turn when agents identified Jay from Fritz's last journal entry as Joanna Wills, a former district attorney who had worked on several unsolved cases in the 1990s before going to prison. When agents located Wills at her law office in Chicago, she confirmed that Fritz had contacted her in early February, claiming to have evidence related to multiple unsolved cases. He had scheduled to meet me on February 13th with what he described as irrefutable evidence that would identify the perpetrator, Wills told investigators, but he never showed. I tried calling him several times but got no response. Since he had a history of health issues, I assumed he had to be hospitalized. The FBI's growing fear that Fritz had disappeared just as he was about to share his findings became evident. It was clear that someone had known about his plans and acted to silence him. The search for Fritz had now turned into both a missing persons case and a potential murder investigation. On March 22, 2025, nearly 3 weeks after Fritz's disappearance, the investigation made its first major breakthrough. Based on location data from Fritz's cell phone taken from records before the device went offline on February 12th, agents focused their search on a remote area of woodland near the Mississippi River, about 30 miles from Fritz's estate, in an open field accessible only by a narrow dirt road. Investigators discovered Fritz's SUV hidden under camouflage. The vehicle appeared to have been carefully concealed with branches and foliage arranged to prevent aerial detection. Inside, agents found a packed suitcase, additional journals, and a laptop, but no sign of Fritz or any evidence of violence or struggle inside the vehicle. The laptop provided immediate intelligence. Fritz had created encrypted files containing backups of all his research, along with video recordings of his own statements detailing his findings. In the most recent video, dated February 12th, Fritz appeared visibly anxious, frequently glancing over his shoulder as he spoke. "If you're watching this, something is wrong." He said in the recording, "I've spent 30 years tracking these people, connecting the dots no one else can see. Tomorrow I'll meet Joanna to hand over everything, but I don't think I'll make it. They've been watching my house. I've prepared this backup and hid my research where they won't find it." "In my journal, there are names you wouldn't believe are involved in this. Check the auction records for the items I've listed. That's where you'll find the evidence." The video ends with Fritz providing coordinates for what he described as a backup, a second cache of evidence he had hidden at another location. When agents tracked these coordinates to an abandoned farm silo 20 miles away, they discovered waterproof containers containing additional documents, photos, and, most importantly, several items Fritz had identified as stolen from victims' homes. These items had never been included in the official police reports and were equipped with Fritz's research and physical evidence from his secondary cache. The FBI began taking action against the individuals named in his journal. On April 5th, 2025, coordinated raids were carried out at 16 locations across the Midwest, targeting antique shops, private homes, and storage facilities linked to Fritz's suspects. The operations recovered dozens of items matching descriptions of stolen property from victims' homes in unsolved cases. What was even more troubling was that some locations contained hidden rooms similar to the one under Fritz's library, spaces dedicated to cataloging stolen items and planning operations. At one site in rural Missouri, agents uncovered a sophisticated workshop where recognizable features of stolen antiques had been altered to avoid detection. The raids led to 12 arrests, including 3 prominent figures in the world of antiques. 2 of the suspects arrested were former law enforcement officers who had actually been involved in some of the initial investigations, explaining how the group had managed to stay ahead of the police for decades. Their connections allowed them to track the progress of the cases and redirect attention when investigators came too close. FBI analysts determined that this network had been operating for at least 4 decades, using legitimate antique trading businesses as a cover for theft, and when necessary, stolen violent items from victims were altered and kept for years before being sold through seemingly legitimate channels to unsuspecting collectors. The profits from these sales helped sustain a comfortable lifestyle for those involved, while the cases slowly faded from attention. Although the criminal network had been successfully dismantled, there was still no evidence indicating that Fritz's network members knew about his planned meeting with former prosecutor Wilkes or had acted to stop him from sharing his findings. The question that haunted investigators was whether Fritz had been captured and was hiding, or worse. The breakthrough in the case came from an unexpected source on April 18, 2025, when a motorcycle mechanic in northern Minnesota contacted authorities after recognizing Fritz's name and photo from news reports on the investigation. The mechanic reported that a man matching Fritz's description, though using a different name, had brought in a classic Harley-Davidson for maintenance in late February. According to the mechanic, the man paid in cash, seemed anxious, and requested that no photos be taken of the motorcycle. He mentioned that he would be staying in a secluded cabin and had bought supplies, indicating he planned to stay there for a long period of time. The most notable detail was that he asked the mechanic to install a hidden compartment on the motorcycle. The mechanic's unusual request led FBI agents to be dispatched immediately to the area, focusing on remote properties matching the general location described by the mechanic. After 3 days of searching, they located a small cabin accessible only by a narrow trail, with a motorcycle fitting the description covered by a tarp beside it. Approaching cautiously, the agents surrounded the property before announcing their presence. The man who emerged from the cabin was indeed Frank Fritz, though nearly unrecognizable. He had lost weight, grown a beard, and dyed his hair. When the agents identified themselves, Fritz's first words were, "Did you find what I left on the floor?" Only after being assured that his research had been recovered and was being processed did he agree to go public and accompany the agents. Once safely detained by the FBI, Fritz revealed the full story. He had conducted his own unofficial investigation for decades, starting after his childhood friend went missing in the late 1970s. During his years working for American Pickers, he seized the opportunity to gather information, visit crime scenes, and make connections that law enforcement had missed. "I never intended to be an amateur detective," Fritz explained in the official press conference. "But once I began to recognize patterns that I couldn't stop seeing, I realized these weren't random crimes. They were calculated, organized, and interconnected by the antique trade, which I know all too well." Fritz described how he first became suspicious when he recognized items at private auctions that matched descriptions of stolen property from unsolved cases. As his awareness grew, he began documenting the similarities between the cases and tracking the movement of specific items in the market. His expertise in antiques allowed him to detect alterations meant to conceal the origins of certain items. Most chillingly, Fritz revealed that he had encountered several members of the network during his American Pickers career, even showcasing some of their legitimate businesses on the show. He had used these encounters to gather information while maintaining his cover. "Just an enthusiastic collector," Fritz told investigators. "The turning point came last year. I was at a private auction in Chicago when I discovered a unique decorative art clock that I knew had been taken from a house in Wisconsin, where the owner was found murdered in 1996. The clock had been modified, but I recognized the unique mechanism when I casually inquired about it. The seller's reaction told me everything I needed to know. They recognized me, and they were not happy about my questions." In the weeks that followed, Fritz noticed surveillance around his property. Strange cars would park along the road near his house, and he began receiving hang-up calls at odd hours. Early in 2025, believing he was in danger, he built a secret room under the library floor to protect his research and contacted former prosecutor Wilkes. "I knew they wouldn't stop at just threatening me," Fritz continued. "These people have killed before to protect their operations. The night before my scheduled meeting with Joanna, I discovered someone was trying to bypass my security. That's when I put my backup plan into action." Appear as though I was still at home while sneaking out through a tunnel I had built in the basement, staging my disappearance, hiding evidence at multiple locations, and heading north with cash and supplies. Fritz's incredible story and the evidence he had gathered led to one of the most significant breakthroughs in the Midwest's history. In June 2025, the FBI charged 23 individuals connected to the criminal network with crimes ranging from theft and burglary to murder and obstruction of justice. Prosecutors estimated that the group was responsible for at least 11 murders and dozens of major thefts spanning 4 decades. The secret room under Fritz's library became famous in law enforcement circles, a testament to one man's determination to solve cases abandoned by official channels. The image journals and meticulous research were described by an FBI analyst as far more comprehensive than many police investigations, with connections made that would not have been possible without Fritz's expertise in antiques and collectibles. After being interrogated by authorities and providing testimony to grand juries in multiple states, Fritz was placed into temporary witness protection until all members of the network could be apprehended. His health, which had been unstable since his stroke, improved thanks to proper medical care, and he expressed relief that his decades-long search for justice had finally come to an end. When asked why he went to such lengths, despite the personal safety risks and the ultimate cost to his life, to investigate crimes that didn't directly involve him, other than his childhood friend, Fritz's answer was simple. In the years I collected items, I always believed that objects carried stories and history. But I also understood that when items disappear, sometimes people do too. Someone has to speak for them. Someone has to remember. The case became famous within the FBI, known as the Picker's Pursuit, not only for the crimes solved, but also for the unexpected detective at its heart. A man with a sharp eye and authenticity in antiques who took down a criminal organization that had evaded professional investigators for generations. Fritz's estate, with its secret room and hidden evidence, has since been donated to the Scott County Historical Society. Though the library floor has been permanently sealed, it remains a reminder of the extraordinary lengths one determined individual went to pursue the truth and justice. Although the library floor has been permanently sealed, the story of one individual's determination and courage continues to be a legacy. Leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like this video and subscribe to the channel so you won't miss the next exciting stories. See you in the next videos. The sound of heavy breathing filled the courtroom as the judge delivered the final verdict. Rick Harrison and Austin Chumley Russell completely crumbled under the weight of the sentence, collapsing in shock. The entire United States was stunned when Rick, once hailed as the living encyclopedia of reality television, unexpectedly received a life sentence without parole. The image of him being handcuffed and silently escorted out of the courtroom quickly became the most shared moment of the week. If you found this story shocking and noteworthy, don't forget to like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you won't miss any videos. Share this video with your friends to uncover more undisclosed details about this case. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comments section. Rick Harrison, a dark side never seen before. What shocked the public was not just the verdict. It was Rick's impulsive and furious reaction in court, a stark contrast to the calm demeanor he had maintained throughout his career. That became the focal point. In an unprecedented, heated confrontation, Rick slammed the table and loudly challenged both the judge and the prosecutor. Once seen as a symbol of knowledge and business ethics, he was now accused of leading an international network involved in smuggling artifacts, money laundering, and tax evasion. The pristine reputation he had spent 15 years building was now at risk of completely unraveling. The case sparked widespread debate across academic circles and among viewers. Was this the fall of a cultural icon, or just a piece of a larger, yet-to-be-uncovered conspiracy? And the question that lingered in everyone's minds: what truly went through Rick Harrison's mind at the moment the verdict was read? Rick Harrison, the storyteller of history on television. Since the debut of Pawn Stars in 2009, Rick has captivated audiences not only with rare antiques, but also with the way he breathes life into each item, as if telling a vivid historical story. Whether it's a Roman coin or an 18th century map, he instantly takes viewers on a journey through its origins, context, and value, making people believe that he's not just a businessman, but a guardian of heritage, a scholar in the guise of an entrepreneur. Rick became a rare figure in an era where knowledge is often overshadowed by the media. With his calm demeanor and profound wisdom, he once said, "I know what I'm doing, and I know I'm always right." It wasn't just a statement. It was a way of life that guided him through difficult times. Rick believed that knowledge was a shield against all risks. Yet, ironically, that very belief would later become the chain that bound his fate. His success in the antiques trade had allowed Rick to build an emotional immunity mechanism, a protective layer against market risks, accusations, and even jealousy from rivals. But this time, that armor couldn't save him. Everything was falling apart, and the man once admired for his calmness and deep knowledge now faced the greatest challenge of his life. Rick faced every challenge in life with cold logic and reason, sometimes as sharp as a blade, other times as steadfast as a stone wall. Over time, he built a thick armor, shielding himself from raw emotion. Rick learned to hide everything behind a stern gaze and a monotone voice. In the world of reality TV, where emotions are often exaggerated, Rick became a paradox. The quieter he was, the more attention he attracted. Yet it was this prolonged suppression of emotions that led to his imbalance, a quiet pride, a blind belief that he was invincible. The beginning of the crisis, the first signs. Then one day, rumors surfaced. An unverified social media post claimed that Rick was under federal investigation for tax evasion and trading unregistered artifacts. His reaction? A half smirk of disdain. This will blow over. For Rick, this wasn't reassurance. It was the declaration of someone who believed they were beyond the reach of the law. For decades, he had learned to dismiss accusations as mere noise, and he thought this was just another passing media storm. But he was wrong. And that mistake marked the beginning of the breakdown of trust. Rick's reaction was not surprising from a psychological perspective. Those who live too long in the glow of power, influence, and admiration often develop an extremely strong ego defense system. They view the world as a puzzle they always have the solution to. They fail to notice the changed gaze of others, the caution in reporters' questions, or the growing wave of doubt. Rick was no different. Even as the investigative details started to become clearer, he still didn't react. No press conference, no legal rebuttal, no explanation. Many called this silence composure. But psychologically, it was a form of emotional paralysis, a common trait in those unable to accept the collapse of the worldview they had built. For Rick, calmness was no longer a strategy. It became a defense mechanism that dulled his awareness of the looming danger. Ironically, it was his past successes that blinded him to his own limitations. The man who once confidently navigated every negotiation now faced a verdict beyond any scenario he could have imagined. In Rick's mind, two conflicting trains of thought coexisted. One clung to the belief that